The Super Nintendo was an era of polish for many of Nintendo's growing franchises, and among that success was the third installment in the acclaimed Legend of Zelda series, a game that is still considered by some to be the greatest Zelda adventure of all time. A Link to the Past is very much a continuation of the formula created by Zelda 1, expanded and streamlined to fit the, at the time, new console. The result is one of the most important entries to grace the franchise, establishing many conventions that would be emulated for decades both inside the series and out. In the land of Hyrule, the mysterious wizard Aghanim has bewitched the kingdom and captured 7 maidens including Princess Zelda, banishing them one by one to an alternate realm known as the Dark World. As the hero, Link must prove his worth by collecting the pendants of courage, wisdom, and power in order to wield the fabled Master Sword, the only weapon capable of defeating the wizard. In time, Link is transported to the Dark World, where he must rescue the 7 maidens from imprisonment. After a final fight with Aghanim, the wizard reveals his true form to be Ganon, who had been sealed within the sacred realm by 7 sages long ago. Ganon's misuse of the golden power of the Triforce had transformed this realm into the Dark World, and he sought to manipulate the sages' descendants, the maidens, to break the seal and conquer the Light World. However, that plan is soon foiled as Link destroys Ganon and gains access to the Triforce, where he righteously wishes for the destruction of evil and for Hyrule to return to its peaceful state. Once again, players are tasked with completing a variety of dungeons, all while exploring a large overworld filled with goodies that augment Link's capabilities, and this is where A Link to the Past deserves immediate praise. This version of Hyrule is positively dense with all kinds of items, upgrades, and mini-objectives, with secrets being telegraphed in some way to attract attention. The game also introduces traversal options like the Pegasus boots, allowing Link to charge forward covering great distances at speed, as well as the flute item for fast travel between set locations. Exploring Hyrule has never been more convenient, rewarding, and, well, fun. But while the overworld and dungeon maps are certainly more comprehensive than Zelda 1, they're not quite detailed enough to be a reliable tool for navigation and completion, especially for areas like Death Mountain's caves. Understanding Hyrule's geography is still mostly about memorization, which can take a while considering the scope of the game and the need to manage both the light and dark worlds. There is also no fast travel in the Dark World, so the process of simultaneously exploring both realms can be cumbersome, switching worlds using the magic mirror, playing the flute, searching for portals, and backtracking. I'm not asking to do away with this system, as the relationship between the worlds is used for some clever problem solving. I just think that a few more portals and fast travel points could have made it less tedious, and having icons on the map for previously discovered portals and collectibles could have also helped. Thankfully, losing one's way is somewhat mitigated by A Link to the Past structure. Dungeons can be tackled out of order on the occasion, but the game does more to recommend a specific sequence of events, like labeling the intended order on the map and stricter item-based progression. This wisely restricts players to relevant areas they can handle, ensuring that they do not encounter unfair difficulty spikes, wander too far off course, or become trapped in unfavorable situations like the first 2 games. This does impede on freedom to a degree, however it ultimately creates a much smoother adventure. A Link to the Past also offers better direction. Generally, all information is given in close proximity to where it is needed, so it's a good idea to converse with NPCs and pay attention when receiving instruction. Likewise, puzzles and mechanics are fairly logical and decently explained. The initial quest to rescue Zelda is mostly a glorified tutorial section, and it's great for teaching the basics. Now, it's still not flawless. Some requirements can be obscure, and hints become pretty scarce by endgame. So even though A Link to the Past is infinitely more playable than previous titles, I wouldn't blame anybody for consulting a guide in some instances. Combat has been reworked to improve Link's abilities as a sword fighter, with enhancements like the horizontal slash and spin attack making Link extremely capable in close quarters. The items Link acquires can be effective at exploiting enemy weaknesses, though there's not as much reason to spend the time or resources when swordplay is such an immediate and reliable solution, and this imbalance slightly diminishes the importance of items as weaponry. Despite that, most are still useful as problem-solving tools even in late game, and the new additions to Link's inventory do provide a good amount of diverse gameplay. The dungeons are probably the most mixed aspect of A Link to the Past. Once again, the challenge is not so much about utilizing items in unique and creative ways to solve puzzles, but rather finding the key to proceed before dying or exhausting resources, which isn't quite as stimulating. The obstacle course level design also doesn't lend itself well to backtracking, something that's often necessary to finish dungeons, and even when it isn't, players are likely to backtrack anyway as they come to grips with the level layouts. The nondescript dungeon maps make it difficult to decipher where everything is and what rooms demand attention, so it's possible to get frustratingly lost retreading old ground simply because it's hard to know or remember where to go, particularly in Skull Woods, Ice Palace, Misery Mire, or Turtle Rock with their multiple floors, maze-like rooms, and branching pathways. Some elements exist only to potentially waste time as an arbitrary resistance to progress, like an over-reliance on locked doors and unnecessary rooms to prolong dungeons, or certain switch blocks with similar implementation. Other annoyances include the ice physics that screw up Link's movement, the same tiresome music, and the constantly respawning enemies which make repeated encounters both bothersome and redundant. Putting all that aside, I admit that dungeons do provide plenty of distinctive and engaging challenges that employ the game's mechanics in smart ways, and there are a handful of satisfying navigational puzzles to come from the added complexity. My favorite detail is how the items found within dungeons are almost always used to finish them, and even when that's not the case, the item chest is usually placed somewhere that's sure to be seen before defeating the boss. This lessens the problem where players could easily miss important items and be unfairly punished for their unpreparedness later on. A Link to the Past is an incredible modernization of Zelda 1's design philosophy, substantially more polished and playable in nearly every regard. The renewed emphasis on exploration and discovery is wonderfully executed, with good traversal options, well-handled secrets, and a rich game world packed to the brim with unique content. It introduces a more considerate structure that protects players from the pitfalls of past games, and guides them to relevant objectives with context clues. However, while it is leaps and bounds ahead of its predecessors, it's not quite a perfection of the formula. The dungeons leave too much room for error, the map feature is still a little too vague to be all that helpful, and the process of thoroughly exploring both the light and dark worlds can be tedious and confusing. I may not worship this game like so many others, but as a Zelda fan, it is interesting to witness the birthplace of many series staples, and I do recognize how much it genuinely succeeds at. The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past is a timeless adventure worth playing not for its cultural significance, but simply because it's a great video game overall, and the first one that I can wholeheartedly recommend with no real reservations. Here begins the golden era for The Legend of Zelda.